Myth number 2. The interviewers know what they are looking for. Maybe I should start this section by sharing a personal experience. Several years ago, I was contacted by Sammy, a recruiter I knew, to interview at a very successful technology firm. At the time, I was very happy with what I was doing and wasn't really in the market. But Sammy insisted that I should go and meet with these people anyway. Finally, I agreed. It took a week of back and forth emails with one of the senior directors, and finally the day came to meet with them. As you might have guessed, I had done no preparation for this meeting, but I was getting very curious about what the company was doing and why they are hiring. I met with the senior director in the cafeteria and started a very casual conversation. She did most of the talking in response to my questions, and we agreed to catch up later. I was driving back to my office when the same senior director called me saying she thought we had a really productive meeting and that she had already spoken to her boss and wanted me to meet him as soon as I am available. Now, before I break it down as to what happened, let me clarify the second myth. You see, the employers know their business objective or the ideal outcome they are looking for. For example, they may want the new hire to help improve the metrics for their receivable, or they want to make sure the migration to cloud will be done on schedule, or they want the new marketing channel to result in X% growth in revenue, or they want to improve diversity, retention, or the modest goal of going back to the status quo after the departure of a key employee. So the interviewers are focused on figuring out if the interviewee can pull this off, whatever this is. So most questions during the interview, and I'm including behavioral interview questions as well as questions during reference checks, are focused on trying to figure out if this is a good match. Referring to the whole person picture, they are really checking your briefcase. The more advanced organizations may also be using scientific tools like predictive index to look inside the head, the behavioral drives and cognitive ability. And they may even touch on the heart. Now, have you ever gone to interviews where briefcase, head, and heart were perfect match, and yet you got one of those "we decided to go a different direction" emails? Now, as I'm saying this, does this remind you of something we touched on earlier? You got it. The employer is consciously seeking logical certainty. Of course, they are also subconsciously seeking emotional certainty, but they are not aware of it. You can't consciously seek something you're unable to define. In that sense, you can say they don't really know what they're looking for. So let me go back to the meeting Sammy arranged for me. In that encounter, I subconsciously raised the senior director's level of emotional certainty about me. I say subconsciously because honestly, at the time, I myself was totally unaware of what was going on. It's only later that I studied similar encounters as well as numerous other studies and experiments to come up with a tool that you can now use to your advantage. So let's take a few minutes here and watch my partner Catherine share a very high-level overview with you.
Have you ever not gotten an offer after interviewing for a job you really wanted without knowing why? Frustrating, isn't it? You probably tried to sell yourself at your interview while hating that you had to do it. Or maybe you even told the hiring manager, "I am uniquely qualified for this position." The truth is, neither approach is going to inspire someone to make you a job offer, but these are the approaches that novice job applicants often use. What if, instead of a job interview, it were a first date? Would you say, "I am uniquely qualified to be your boyfriend," or try to sell them on being your girlfriend? Or would you take your time to get to know the person, to decide if you want to be with them, while giving yourself every opportunity to be chosen if it's a match for both? Let's say you're smart enough to choose the latter approach, which also works for interviewing. You're not going to be focused on giving perfect answers to each of their questions. You're going to focus on charming and learning about the other person. You will dress to impress, smile, ask great questions, be kind to people around you, and respond sympathetically and intelligently to what they say. You will make them laugh at their jokes, and tell intriguing stories. You will be diplomatic about people it didn't work out with. At the end of the meeting, you will express interest in seeing them again if you remain interested. Welcome to Interview Aikido. We at Yes Career Coaching and Resume Writing Services named our interview training technique after the Japanese martial art Aikido. The Japanese word Aikido means the way of unifying energy. One problem with the traditional approach to interviewing is that when the interviewer asks all the questions, the interviewee has less power. But with Interview Aikido and successful dating, you are unifying with the other person, metaphorically walking side by side instead of being disempowered. Interview Aikido consists of three main elements. 1, asking questions throughout the interview and effectively using the information you get. 2, building rapport. And 3, adeptly handling any concerns they may have about you. When you use Interview Aikido, you ask questions throughout your interview. What are your favorite and least favorite aspects of working here? What's working well in your department? And what would you like to see different? This has 3 benefits. It makes you more relaxed because you will be on the hot seat less, and it creates a more relaxed, free-flowing conversation. It enables you to build rapport by getting into the interviewer's world. And most importantly, it enables you to get information you can use to present yourself as the solution to their problems. For example, if the question, "What are your strengths and weaknesses?" is asked before you have answered, when you have only answered any questions, you will have to answer without knowing what they want to hear. But if you asked and heard the answer to, "What would you like to see different in your department?" before you are asked, "What are your strengths and weaknesses?" you will know which of your strengths will be most helpful to mention. The second aspect of Interview Aikido is building rapport. When interviewers say something about themselves or the organization's challenges, do you respond in a personal way like, "That's awesome, good for you," or, "Oh, I can imagine," or, "I feel your pain"? Or do you respond from, "How should I sell myself now?" Responding to interviewers in a personal way will build a relationship with, energetically align you with someone who may soon be your boss. Responding from trying to sell yourself is more typical and less effective. If you relate empathically to hiring managers, you can be the one they most like and want to work with. A brain study by neuroscientist Antonio Damasio found that when people lose the ability to feel emotion, they cannot make decisions. In other words, everyone makes decisions emotionally, even if they later justify those decisions with logic. So be the one who made them laugh and laughed at their jokes. Be the one who made them feel heard. Be the one who gave them hope of relief from their workplace stress and problems. In short, be the one who unified his or her energy with theirs. And now we arrive at the third and final piece of Interview Aikido, finding out what would make them not move forward with you and effectively resolving those concerns. The worst thing is when you interview and leave without knowing how they feel about you and whether you will be going on to another interview or fielding an offer. The solution to this is just to ask, like this. "Ms. Brown, I have really enjoyed this conversation. I would love to talk more about working together and bringing your cool innovation lab idea to life. Now, what concerns do you have about my fit for the position?" You'll want to ask this question in a relaxed way, making it safe for Ms. Brown to be straight with you about what is on her mind. Now, whatever she says, you want to respond, again coolly, "That makes sense. If what I otherwise bring to the table would make it worth working out, how can you see us overcoming that?" Note, you must resist the temptation to try to solve this problem for her, as Ms. Brown will feel more confident about the solution if she comes up with it herself. So there you have the 3 secrets of interview Aikido. Ask great questions and effectively use the information you gather. Help them like you and get any of their concerns resolved to their satisfaction. Like a date, an interview is an opportunity to charm, befriend, and build excitement. If you do this right, you just may get a sweet offer and a great relationship with your new boss, with whom you are energetically aligned. In short, you'll score.
Okay, so let's take Catherine's presentation one level deeper. Do you remember the periodic table of elements from our high school chemistry class? And that every molecule in the world, whether it's water or more complex material, is built from these basic elements in the table? Well, now I want to make an outrageous claim based on extensive psychological studies, including the work of Blair Warren, the author of The Forbidden Keys to Persuasion. Do you remember these diverse examples of goals for which a hiring manager may be interviewing and hiring someone? Well, all these goals, and in fact every other reason for which an interviewer is talking to you, is meant to meet one or more of the 7 fundamental human needs of the interviewer. Warren called these needs addiction because they are insatiable. Of course, no interviewer is consciously aware of this fact, and almost no interviewee knows how to leverage them. And you wonder, why am I getting those "we decided to go a different direction" emails? To make people, including strangers, refer you to jobs or become your staunch advocates for advancement, or for interviewers to quickly make up their mind about wanting to hire you, you need to master these secrets, and our Aikido technology was developed to do just that. I'm sure you remember this chart from earlier in this video. Now, let's add our interview technology to this formula. The same number of opportunities at 62%, the same number of interviews, and yet the interview success rate goes from 15% to 27%. That's almost doubled and is better than 1 offer out of 4 interviews. This is happening because you will leverage your understanding of the 7 fundamental needs and learn to use the psychology of influence to impress the interviewer at the subconscious and emotional levels. By discovering and honoring these needs, not only are you increasing your chance by increasing emotional as well as logical certainty in you, but you will also discover any concerns they may have about you and use the technique to coach the interviewer to overcome their own concerns. As the icing on the cake, during the interview, you will also learn about factors you can later use during your salary negotiation to maximize your compensation. Almost every client achieves this level of success after studying the training material and a single mock interview. Just to summarize what we covered, many of you have heard the adage, people buy emotionally and then justify it rationally. Well, it's no different in hiring. That's why it is critical to increase not only the logical certainty that you can do the job, but also the emotional certainty that they like you, trust you, and they want to have you by their side, even if they cannot quite articulate the reasons. But of course, they will come up with their own rationale. As you will learn later, increasing the emotional certainty by a skilled practitioner of interview Aikido can even compensate for a moderate level of logical uncertainty. That is, you do not have to be the most qualified candidate in order to get the offer. On a related note, some of you might have remembered having done a great interview only to never hear back from the prospective employer. Well, before leaving the interview, we want to use certain questions specifically designed to get a feel for how well, on a scale of 1 to 10, the interviewer thinks you did. And more importantly, coaching them on what the two of you can do together to overcome those objections, thus increasing that level of certainty before you leave the interview. And let me emphasize the word coaching here. If the interviewer thinks you are too short, too tall, too slim, too fast, etc., you will not be arguing or countering their perception. That goes against one of their fundamental human needs, but rather probing them on how they can overcome their own objections will actually leverage another one of their fundamental human needs. And finally, how can you successfully negotiate better terms for your compensation if you have not fully discovered the full value that the employer believes you can bring to the table? To learn about how to obtain that information during the interview and always attain your compensation goals in a negotiation, check out this write-up and its associated salary negotiation calculator. Now, some of you may be losing your patience with me here, saying, wait a minute, I'm not leaving my current job. I just want faster career advancement. Well, I appreciate that you brought that up. That is in fact the goal of many clients who work with us, because what you just learned about career Aikido, and in particular interview Aikido, is a way of life. Once you master its principles, you will be using it not only during interviews, but also when you are coaching an employee, negotiating raise or advancement with your boss, or for that matter, when you are trying to have a closer and deeper relationship with a loved one. I want to invite you to a new perspective about your company and your boss. They are really your customers. You're actually the CEO of your own company, no matter what you do for a living and who pays your paycheck. Your company will prosper when you can take care of these customers. And you cannot take care of these customers if you do not have a deep understanding of their needs, desires, and dreams. If you use interview Aikido techniques to regularly discover these about your boss and colleagues, that insight will empower you to put in place mutually profitable plans for your growth and advancement. While we have entire programs dedicated to executive coaching and career advancement, it is helpful to benefit from the following insight. According to studies done by Indeed, salary increases and bonuses may start to stagnate the longer you stay with an employer. There are numerous well-established studies that confirm this, and of course you can do that research yourself on the web. So even if at the moment you prefer to stay with your current company for a long time, it will be to your financial advantage to keep an eye on the job market and apply some of the same strategies that I am recommending to job seekers. This level of preparedness can help you when negotiating raise or promotion with your boss. Now, before we leave the topic of interviews and future advancement, let me briefly bring up another point. Okay, you did everything right, you aced the interview, and now you're employed. That's like going from a couple of dates to engagement. Up to now, both you and your employer were on your best behavior. When you were asked to talk about your weaknesses, you parroted a well-rehearsed answer that was designed to either further your cause or at least neutralize any negative perception. And I'm sure the employer also told you all about the great things about the company, the benefits, what a fun team you will be working with, etc. I mean, when was the last time an interviewer boasted about their organizational dysfunction, poor market positioning, or attrition rate during an interview? Then there is any surprise that we are experiencing the highest level of unhappiness and employee dissatisfaction at work? Of course, we are not here to fix employers' challenges, but we should talk a few minutes about how we can help you avoid this. That process starts long before you start applying for jobs. By figuring out how to leverage your strengths and weaknesses, figuring out what is it that you really want, where you can get it, and the best strategies to get there. A lot of times when I ask someone what they want, they start by telling me what they don't want. That's like trying to drive a car while you are looking back through the mirror. When pressed further, sometimes people look at other people's goals as opposed to taking the time and defining their own goals. I believe gaining that clarity is where you want to start long before updating your resume. I want you to stay on this slide a bit longer so that the gravity of the message sinks in, because life is too short to make too many career mistakes. So here is a link to a tool that you can help you focus on what you want and make sure that you're focusing only on employers and roles that help you achieve those goals. Naturally, the next step would be to try to identify and focus on organizations that meet your criteria. When we bust the next myth, I will also touch on how to make sure you're saving your energy only to employers that meet your criteria. Now let's take another look at this chart. We talked about how you can almost double your interview success rate. The only catch here is that you're still limiting yourself to 62% of potential opportunities in the market. These are the same opportunities that are visible to everyone else and are being competed for by other qualified candidates. To find out what else you can do to drastically increase your success rate, let's take a look at the next myth. Before we end this section, if you want to avoid a waiting list, you may go ahead and book your free career success consultation now. If not, let's continue.